Welcome to the Justin Ng Show, where real entrepreneurs and investors reveal how they turn humble beginnings into high-impact ventures. From bold moves to capital raises, we unpack what it really takes to build and scale greatness. Let's go check it out. Today, I'm joined by Bill Murray, President and CEO of the Hydrogen Group, former FINRA insider and a serious player in the capital raising world. We're talking about how he went from Wall Street regulation to helping raise millions and advising entrepreneurs on the money game. From navigating compliance to unlocking investor trust, this episode is full of gems for anyone raising capital. Let's go. Yeah, so Bill, thank you so much for joining us at the fabulous podcast mentioned on my show, and thank you very much for your time today. Yeah, let's tell us more about your journey and your story, like from how you started and where you are right now.
Absolutely. Well, Justin, I appreciate the opportunity to tell the story. I think this is a great studio. It's all started about 6 years ago, and I'm a business consultant, and this company came to me for a couple things. They wanted some consultation on financing because they wanted to sell shares of stock to the country. And so with my background in investments, I was with FINRA. I was a Series 24 compliance officer, so I know how to put the documents together. And but what intrigued me, because I've consulted thousands of companies, but what I liked about this company, I thought this could be a future unicorn because they have something that's really unique, could be a game changer in the trucking industry. And so I said, yeah. So a couple hours a month, I was their consultant. And so then they tested their device. They did really well. They got 27% fuel savings. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. How did they do that? So the more I got in it, because I'm not really a technical person, but they had this NASA engineer, trained NASA engineer. And basically in high school, I remember this, you take water, you add lots of salt. Then you drop a 9-volt battery in that water and bubbles come up. Well, the bubbles are hydrogen. That's how simple hydrogen is. They discovered that in the 1700s. And hydrogen is the most common element in the universe. The sun runs on hydrogen. And if it ever runs out of hydrogen, it's going to get really cold in Las Vegas. So that's where hydrogen is everywhere. And yet we aren't using it like we could for an energy source. But we are starting to. It's in the news almost everywhere now, especially Europe. I spent a lot of time in Europe. And since they had that deal with the Russians for gas and oil, they're looking now, to where else? So the hydrogen is really big there. They're talking about it. And it's coming more here as well. So anyway, I was consulting them, and I raised them some money, $750,000. And the engineer unfortunately had a brain tumor and died. So then about 6 months later, the CEO, he was about 80 years old. He got 2 strokes, and the board says he couldn't function anymore. So I'm in Europe, and I get this call. The board says, hey, we voted you in as the interim CEO today. So I flew from Germany to Florida, where they were headquartered. I never really met these people. I just talked to them on the phone. And after 3 days, I said, there's 2 choices here. We can either shut the company down because, 1, you don't have an engineer. 2, you don't have a product that you can market yet. You have a prototype, which you've tested, but we can't sell it today the way it is. And you run out of money. You don't have any more money. So the other choice would be that I buy the company based on future earnings. So they had 92 investors. They all voted, okay, yeah, that sounds good, better than nothing. And so I relaunched the company. And I found an automotive engineer in my circle that I knew. And he worked for Isuzu. And 25 years ago, he worked on a hydrogen program at Isuzu. And he thought they were doing great. That one day, the headquarters said shut it down. They never could figure out why, because it was starting to, really develop. So he's the automotive engineer for our company, chief engineer. And within a year, we're selling our product now. We have a product to sell, and we are selling it. And to describe it, you think of a box, a steel box, and inside that box is a generator. Remember what I said about water. Water is essential because when you add electricity to water, it turns into 2 things, hydrogen and oxygen. So we put these steel plates in water, and they're all encased, and then we add electricity, and then the bubbles come up. The bubbles go into tubing, which feeds the air intake, and then that mixes with the diesel fuel in the chamber. So hydrogen burns 10 times faster than diesel fuel. And if you've ever been to a truck stop, you smell diesel in the air, and you can see all that black soot coming out. That's because it only burns about 90%. So when it combusts in the diesel, you have that 10% that's wasted. So by adding a little hydrogen, hydrogen burns 10 times faster. So now it burns all the diesel, and it has a much more powerful burn, a much more cleaner burn. So you have less toxic emissions. And then the engine performs better, has more power, and lasts longer, and requires less maintenance. So it's really a win-win, win-win, win-win. Now, there is a company out there, they were in the news today, called Nikola. They originally started out to compete with Tesla with electric semi-tractors. Then they switched after their CEO was arrested for fraud. Long story there. And now they want to store hydrogen behind the driver, where the driver usually sleeps. So they'll put tanks of hydrogen there, which they're doing, and then they feed a fuel cell. Well, the fuel cell takes the hydrogen and turns it into two things, electricity and water. So that then turns the electric motor. But where do you get the hydrogen? Only in Southern California can you go to a place to get hydrogen. Nowhere else. So I don't know. They sold a couple today, but their stock went up a little bit. But to us, why store hydrogen? Especially when you don't need to. You can make it as you burn it. So we don't store it. When you turn the engine off, it stops making hydrogen.
Okay.
So you don't need to store anything.
Okay.
People would always say when we started this, and I think there were other companies that started about 20 years ago to do what we're kind of doing, but the timing was bad for a lot of reasons. But today, everything is shifted over towards zero emissions. Now we know, like California, they want to ban gasoline and diesel vehicles by 2035. And they already know that's not possible because for a lot of reasons. Last year, Southern California had a drought and really a heat wave for quite a while. And Governor Newsom said, if you have an EV, don't plug it in during the day because our grid can't take it. So so they want you to buy an EV, but then in the summer when it's hot, they say don't plug it in. And then another trucking company we know, they wanted to buy 10 electric trucks, Tesla trucks, and they went to the town in California and they said we need 10 charging stations to be built. And the city came back and says no, we can only build 3 because our grid can't take that kind of load. So there's already this conflict, and but we look at us that technology will come. We figure in about 5 to 10 years where they can start mandating this kind of stuff. But in this interim, we're the interstep. We're the step from 100% diesel to less diesel to no diesel. So we're the in between. And the beauty of what we do is that it makes the trucking companies more money. And let me explain why. Last year, most people don't know this, 88,000 trucking companies in the United States either went bankrupt or had to sell assets to stay alive. That's 88,000. And one of them was the Yellow Freight. They've been started in 2019, over 100 years old. They went bankrupt last year. They put 35,000 truck drivers out of work. 35,000. So that part of the reason, it wasn't the only reason, was high fuel cost. Right now, I just get these stats almost daily. The average cost of diesel fuel in the United States is $3.55. It costs a trucker running, long haul, about $1.63 to run. That's including your fuel and insurance and the driver pay and all that stuff. So it's about $1.63. But they're taking loads paying $1.33. So they're losing 30 cents each mile. And the only reason that they're getting to the next month is they go to a factor and they sell their contract. And then they get money. Well, they have to pay a fee for that. But that gives them enough money to operate for the next month. So it's almost a month-to-month type of deal, which is not healthy. Your company can't survive after a while. So we believe that, if you take a company, which I talked to recently, they have 100 trucks. They get a gas discount. So all the drivers carry a card, and they just put in the card in the machine, the gas pump. And to get that discount, they have to guarantee they'll buy 200,000 gallons per month. Now remember, gas is $3.50, or diesel $3.55 a gallon. So that's $700,000 each month. So they're spending, if you take that out, that's $700,000 a month. Multiply that by 12. That's almost $8 million they're spending on gas, on diesel. So if we save them, which we guarantee 10%, we're talking a lot of money.
Right.
We're saving them $70,000 per month.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we have something here. And right now there's 3.6 million semi-tractors on our roads. Everywhere you go, you see semis going
Right.
back and
Yeah.
forth. And if we capture 1% of them, we're about 300 million in sales because our device only costs $12,000.
Yeah.
So if you're going to save a company $70,000 and you say this costs $12,000, they go, okay, that makes sense.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess just to recollect, you mentioned that they reached out to you because you were part of like investor groups and your financial and sort of FINRA.
Yeah. I've been consulting. I don't do that now because I was a
Oh, okay.
licensed. I worked as a compliance officer at two brokerage firms. One was in Europe. And then I got out of that industry. And so I became the business consultant because I had the background, obviously. And on the side, I did other things, invested in real estate here in Las Vegas because I came here in 2004. So I've done other things. But I felt that the biggest need is for startups because most startups don't know, they might have a great idea, but they don't know how to go to the market. They don't know how to put their documents together. They don't know how to put their best foot forward. So I try to help them become more fundable. Now there's some that I say you don't have a real business plan. So don't sell don't get a second mortgage on your house. Don't quit your day job because your business won't fly. And some people don't like to hear that, but others will come back later and say, you were right. My business, that wouldn't have worked. But I've changed, da 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 da. So that's because we used to say, I used to tell people, according to Small Business Association, SBA administration, I mean, they said about 650,000 new businesses are founded each year, which is a lot, 650,000. Well, Forbes a couple of years ago said it's more like 3 million. 3 million new businesses are started each year.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
So what I tell the entrepreneurs is that you're competing against all these other new businesses. They're all looking for money.
Right.
So how do you get ahead? You get ahead by having all the documents that investors want with the information investors want. Most people will send us, so I have a little bit of a team. They send us documents and they're trying to sell their widget. And we say, we don't want to buy a widget. We want to see if you're a good investment. So we look at it from the eyes of an investor. So you have to rewrite this. Investors want to know about your market. Have you tested it? Have you tried trial sales? What is your cost per unit? These are the things investors want to know. They don't want to know 100 things about your widget. Doesn't mean anything. They want to know if you can sell it and make money. And if you can make money selling your widget, then they might invest in you. And if you can't get that across, they'll never invest in you.
Okay.
And that's why most most startups don't get funded. And that's why if you go to a VC, any VC or PE fund will tell you, we look at 1,000 companies a month, we take 3 to review. And then after 3 months, we may take 1 that we invest in. Wow. Now that said, this is an amazing fact. Wall Street Journal wrote an article about 3 years ago that VC, venture capital, and private equity funds lose 75% of the time. So they lose, out of 100 companies, 75 will go belly up. So they're living on the 25 that stay alive.
Okay.
Yeah, but they don't advertise that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So why 3 though?
Because that's what they feel, or they want to go into due diligence. So that costs money because you have to visit the company. You just can't take their word. You have to see, okay, how do you manufacture this? Who's your team? You have to meet the team. You have to go into what their market is. You have to do your own research. Is there really a market? So you have to really verify everything in their business plan because you just don't take their word. And of course, you have to hire people to do that. So it costs money. Now, some investment banks, they have a different model. You go to them, they say, okay, you give us $50,000. And then we'll put all of your package together, but we may not invest. So that's their model. And if they'll put your package together, it looks good, but then they say, well, we're not interested in investing, but you do have a package now you can take anywhere. So that's the game. I don't call it a game. I shouldn't say game, but that's how they operate. That's their business model because they can't just look at It takes too much work to look at companies that don't have a future. That's the best way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's almost like the show Shark Tank, right? You come and present,
Exactly right. Exactly.
and sometimes they don't pan out there, but you bring it somewhere else.
And it might. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's happened a lot. But that's because you're getting national exposure. And those companies, they have to pay a fee just to be on the show. And it's part of their company. And so before they were, I think it was like 10%, and then nobody wanted to be on the show. But now it's like 2 or 3% that whether you get funded or not, the Shark Tank owns 2% of your company.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
their model. Yeah. So even if you go someplace else and get funded, like I remember Bubba Burger. I see Bubba Burger always reminds me of this. He was on Shark Tank and didn't get funded. Well, now he went somewhere else and he's a multi-million-dollar company.
Right.
But Shark
Gosh,
Tank still owns a little bit of their company.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you mentioned that there was few criteria to be fundable.
Yeah.
And what was the main thing that, I guess you have to have a presentation, and like what's the number one thing to be able to get that to be that 1% to be fundable?
The really simple is make it simple. Look at Airbnb. Airbnb, if I had their slide deck, if you look at their slide deck, it's pretty simple. It just says if you own a property, like a house or an apartment, and you can rent it out by the night, and and you keep it clean and nice in a nice area, and people will pay you.
Mm-hmm.
And we believe that millions of people would want to do this. That's
Yeah.
pretty simple. And then when you think about it, if you're an investor, you go, that could work. That could work. And they got funded. I think they started out with a couple million, and later they got 20 million, and later somebody put in 50 million. But that's how they got started. It started out with one apartment in San Francisco. 3 guys owned it, and they rented it out. That was one apartment.
Wow.
Yeah. Now they're all over the world.
Yeah. And all in one. Now it's being regulated as well. So.
Yeah, there's some cities are saying we don't want this,
Yeah.
da, da, da. But they've already made billions of dollars, so that they've been a great success. If you were part of the original investing group, you were very, very happy. You've made very good returns.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you mentioned you moved here, and then you also invested in real estate.
Yeah.
How was that process for you, going through that in the beginning?
Well, the way I invested was very simple. I got a realtor's license
Oh, okay. So
because then I could be on the inside.
Okay.
So that's a big difference.
Okay.
You got to take the test and you got to become a licensed. Then you can start looking at houses before they come on the market.
Gotcha. Okay.
Very simple.
Are you still licensed as an agent?
No, again, because every license yet requires fees and you have to take tests and all that stuff. So no, because I got too busy. I don't have time to do that. And then the market. Remember what happened in 2008?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It collapsed. Yeah.
Yeah. And you only owned real estate at that time. How did you help yourself to build up from there?
Well, you find places that are underpriced, undervalued. Because I'll give you an example. It was a retired couple living in like Sun City. It was only retirees, and the father had passed away. So the children came from Michigan, and they wanted to bring mom back to Michigan. So they said, the house, the price, they could have sold the house for $400,000, and I'm walking up the steps, and my daughter says, "We'll take $100,000 less."
Wow. That
Now you could say, "Oh, you shouldn't take advantage." Well, this is the family. This is the daughter. I'm not making an offer for $100,000. This is them offering me. And I said, "Why are you doing that?" She says, "We just want to get rid of the house. We just want to take mom back to Michigan, and we just want to be done with it."
Wow. And that was how it was at that
I mean,
time.
yeah. I mean, that's because, but again, you can't depend on that every day. Mostly it's research. Is this house underpriced? Based on a lot of things. So whatever. But people do get, they have to leave in a hurry because of a job or whatever. They say, "Hey, I'm going to put the house on the market tomorrow, and I'm going to charge 10% less than market value or something." Okay,
Mm-hmm.
if you know that as an insider because you're a realtor.
Mm-hmm.
Where else would you find that information?
Yeah, that makes sense.
You wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember signs. We buy ugly houses. I don't see them anymore, but remember those signs that were on billboards? And,
The caveman?
Yeah, it was a caveman or something. And I thought, yeah, but you're not going to get the good deals. You're going to get not fixer uppers. You're going to get terror downers.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you mentioned about research. Like, what kind of research do you think will be important in terms when it comes to like into this real estate game?
Well, it's like anything. It's like any industry. Like I always tell people, it's like people that invest in the stock market. You should never invest in something you don't understand. If you invest in something that you don't understand, you most likely will lose money. I mean, there was a time when I bought Bitcoin, and I never heard about Bitcoin. Somebody said, "Oh, you got to get in this Bitcoin." I said, "Oh, really? What is it?" And he explained it, and I said, "I don't really know what it is. What does it do again? You can't buy it. You can't put it in your wallet.
Yeah.
What is this? I can never
Okay.
figure that out." And so I bought one for $6,000.
Okay.
And he said, "But don't look at the paper. For 3 months, don't even look at the paper. Don't even look at the internet, anything about Bitcoin." Okay, good. 3 months later, put a little tab on my calendar. Oh, I want to see what Bitcoin is. Oh, Bitcoin is $3,000. So I sold it.
Oh, okay.
So I was really smart.
Okay.
I sold it. I bought it at 6, sold it at 3,000, and then I saw it go up to 70,000.
Yeah, I don't know how much is it right now, but
It's come back. It's like
It's come back.
63,000. Yeah, I still watch it a little bit, but I still dabble a little bit in crypto. But it was, again, I've invested in something I didn't understand, and that was a mistake.
Right.
If I really knew it, I would have probably never. I would have been like, what do they call them, hodlers? They never sell.
Oh, hodl. Yeah, I heard
Hodl.
that.
Yeah, they call it HODL
Yeah,
because
I
the
heard
guy
that, yeah.
misspelled it or something.
Yeah.
And I should have been that, but I didn't understand it. So that's why I said, like this company, the hydrogen company, I didn't know much about hydrogen. I remember, like in high school, we made, I told you how we made hydrogen. But the more I researched, I said, this is the future. You can make it from water.
Yeah.
You don't need a factory. So that's when they said, we make it in a box. What?
Okay.
You make it in a box? On the truck? Yeah, well, the truck's going down the road. Wow. And you don't need filling stations? No, we don't need filling stations. Yeah.
And you did the research as well, like you came from Europe all the way to Florida.
Well, I happened to be over there just on a business trip, but that's when I got the call that I'm the interim CEO. So I'm going to take over, and I'm thinking I'm just going to take over until they find a new CEO. But then as I got into the company, I realized they don't have anything. They lost their engineer. They had 3 patents, which was good, and 1 pending. So when I bought the company, I bought the patents, basically.
Okay.
And then so I bought everything, really. And that's when it allowed me to start, building the company up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you say you bought the company, what was the process going? How was the process like trying to obtain or buy a property that way as an interim CEO?
Well, it was very simple because I am now the CEO of the company, so I can look at all the books. I can see. I never really did that before because I wasn't in the company, So then I could look at everything, and I could see where, because then you talk to people who are technical advisors. So you call people and you say, "Tell me what this patent says," because how do I know how to read a patent,
Okay.
And they said, "Well, this is a solid patent. This is a good patent." I said, "Okay, good. That's all I need to know, that, somebody can't steal the idea tomorrow, So, and then, like I said, I believe that there is a market. I always believe that. But then they didn't have any money. They didn't have a viable product. And the problem was they had already spent over $1 million. So if you go to investors and they go, "Well, this company spent $1 million and they never brought a product to market. Why would I put money in this company?" Because then I realized that they had misspent a lot of money. There was not good decisions made. And so I said, "Oh, they spent a lot of money on stuff they didn't need to." That was the problem. So I said, if I take over this company, then I can cut out all this fat that they don't need, and I can make it more streamlined, and I can bring the team down, and I can make it much quicker. It's like Elon Musk. He's competing with NASA. Well, NASA spends 10 times or 20 times what Elon Musk is, and their spaceship doesn't work. So Elon Musk says, "Well, use mine." And it's a little bit it's like 10% of what NASA would cost. He does it for 10% and gets the job done.
Yeah.
That's innovation, and that's good decision making on the leader, because you can give everybody $1 million and come back a year. You're going to have people on the street begging for money
Right.
because they made bad decisions.
Okay.
And it's this, and then you're going to have other people that you gave them $1 million, but now they got $100 million. Well, how? Because they started a company or something, and they did something great, and then boom, that you go up. I mean, if you look at the big giants, Elon Musk started with one little company, and he had a couple colleges. He was working out of his dorm, and he was needing money to buy servers. And I read the book about him. One of his dad's friends was wealthy. He came to him. He says, "I'm willing to give you $1 million today for." It was called the Facebook then, and I own everything. And Mark Zuckerberg said, "No, I don't want to sell the company, but I do need $2,500 to buy more servers because I'm running out of server space." And today he's worth what, 60, 70 billion dollars because he turned down $1 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's a big turnaround right there.
Yeah. So it's business is like anything. There's some luck involved, but it's really timing. Like I said, 20 years ago, people in hydrogen, you go, no, that's just too crazy. But now everybody's talking about hydrogen. If you Google hydrogen, and Google hydrogen news, you get 100 pages of just solid news on hydrogen because it's being talked about everywhere. And there's different kinds of hydrogen, which I didn't know until I got involved in this company. And they even found the other day where hydrogen is buried in the earth. So that's another source of hydrogen. So again, but again, you have to store the hydrogen if you want to use it for, like Hawaii does it. Hawaii actually uses hydrogen to put in mix with their gas to heat homes or to power homes. And they've been doing that for about 10 years now. Most people don't know that. So hydrogen is being used a lot. And people think the Hindenburg, it blows up. Well, the Hindenburg didn't blow up. You see the movie, it comes in real slow and there's a fire on the bottom and it kind of goes slow. It doesn't explode. And it allowed half the passengers or more than half to jump out. And they lived. But had it exploded, nobody would have lived. So that's the difference. It didn't explode. So when we say we're adding a little bit of hydrogen to the chamber to burn with diesel, that's not going to explode or cause any damage. It's right. That's why the vehicle, we actually protect the vehicle by making the engine more efficient and lasting longer and giving it more power.
Right.
Because right today, and then on the emissions, we save up to 50% on emissions. Now the new trucks right off the lot today, they have what's called a DEF filter. That's called diesel emissions filter. And the DEF filter uses a type of fluid. So they have to buy the fluid, and then about 3 times a year they have to change that filter, which is about $6,000 to $8,000. And then they have to bring the truck into a workshop. So the truck is down for the whole day or maybe 2 days. So they're not making money, and then they have to spend $6,000 to $8,000. With our device, they're down to maybe once a year.
Okay.
Once a year.
Wow.
And then as far as maintenance, the only thing the driver has to do is about every second fill up, when he tanks up, add 1 pint of water into the tank, because we use water to make we make the hydrogen. So that's not much maintenance.
Right. And you're talking about the gas tank or the hydrogen tank?
We put it in the water tank. See, there's a water tank in that box.
Okay.
And that's where the water comes down and feeds the part where it's called the electrolysis. So when we put those steel plates in there, then we add electricity, these bubbles come up. And that's called electrolysis, electrolysis, making the bubbles from the water.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what you feed into the chamber.
That what feeds into the tube, goes into the engine, and then co-combust. Yeah.
Okay.
It's very simple.
And so right now, you guys, I've ever seen the study. They say they lost $1 million, they spent $1 million. You try to get investors to come in. How is that process going for you guys right now in terms of getting investors to come in?
Well, remember, the first group of investors, and there's 92 of them, they're the ones that voted. They actually put in $1.2 million, and because they were excited about using hydrogen, but the company never had a product. I mean, they had a prototype, which they tested, and they tested 27% fuel savings at the Transportation Research Center. That's one of the top 3 truck testing facilities in America. They're in Ohio. So that was amazing. And I was using an old truck from 1999.
Okay.
So what we know now is that with older trucks, we get much better savings. It's the new trucks that have all the emissions and all the electronics and all that stuff that we say that we get 10, we guarantee 10. But we have some customers that are getting 14.5 and 15% savings,
Okay.
which is pretty amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are the 92 investors are now happy with where the direction is?
Yeah, they're happy. They're happy.
And is that helping you guys also trying to get more capital coming
We
in?
have gotten more capital. We've raised about $500,000 since I took over.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and we still have half of that in the bank.
Okay.
So the other company, they went through 1 million and never brought a product to the market. We're selling our product today.
Okay.
So this is a big difference.
How was the process like trying to raise that $500,000?
Well, again, what we found is it's a couple of things. I'll give you an example. Our vice president was in line at the post office, and he started talking to this gentleman that was in line with him, and he started telling about our company. So the gentleman wanted a call with our engineer. He says, I want to know more. Well, this gentleman has a contract with Amazon, and he has a fleet of trucks which are run on electric. They're all electric trucks. But he was so intrigued with using hydrogen on semis that he invested $250,000.
Wow, on the spot.
Yeah, pretty much. It came in over a couple of weeks, but after he discovered that this was patented, that this is really a true science, and that we're selling them, then he was convinced.
Okay.
So, and right now we're talking to a couple of VCs that are interested in this.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because we really need $4 or $5 million to really expand. And because remember, there's 3.6 million semi-tractors, and that's just the semi-tractor market. Now if you go into the diesel generator market, you're talking mining, which goes all over the world, oil and gas fields, electricity, those pump jacks they're called. They go up and down.
Yeah.
Most of them are run on diesel generators.
Oh, okay.
So they burn a lot of diesel. And then they have trucks the tanker trucks take the crude oil out of the fields. So they have to come back and forth all day long.
Right. So you see like a two.
So that's a huge
Two
market.
applications,
That's a huge market,
Okay.
which we haven't even started in yet. Then you have ships at sea. They run on diesel as well. Like in Europe, I see barges all over the rivers, up and down.
Yeah.
A lot of them. They usually have 4 giant diesel engines, and they run a lot of diesel through them. And the diesel fuel in Europe is over $9 a gallon. Yeah, so you can imagine if I tell them they can save 10% or more, we know we can save more, but we save 10%. So that's another market. And then the military. I'm ex-military. I was in the Army. So I know that when you have Humvees in the field, you have to refuel everything that runs on diesel. You have to refuel them. And so I know if you can say, and we know they don't have any emission stuff on them. They don't. They're just running pure, diesel. We can get them probably another 20%.
So they can go
range,
yeah.
and that's a tactical advantage, and that saves lives. Because with the war in Ukraine, which I kind of follow, a lot of times the Russians are hit because they're refueling their trucks or their tanks, and that's where the Ukrainians hit them because there's a line you have to get refueled, right? Boom. And if you've got that extra range, you don't have to refuel as often.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess going back to the gentleman you met in the post office, when you presented him the information and documentation, do you have to present them to say that, is it a 506C raise, 506C?
Yeah, raise? It is. Yeah, we have a private placement memorandum. Remember, I come from the Series 24 compliance officer at FINRA. So you have to have all your documents in order, and this is why. One, you have to protect yourself and your assets. You have to protect the company and its assets, and then you have to protect the investor. And when I talk to these startups, almost 90% of them or more, I think it's 95%, don't have proper documents. And I'll give you an example. Person got an investor, and the investor was, he was retired, liked the golf and stuff, but he liked this company, this friend of mine, put in $300,000. A couple weeks later, he had a heart attack, died on the golf course. So his wife didn't even know he had invested, and his kids, they're all there like, what is this check here for $300,000 to some kind of this company, So they called their lawyer. The lawyer looks at it, and he looked at the document that this person signed, and he called that company and says, your documents aren't compliant at all, and you have 3 days to give us back $300,000. Wow. Because they didn't have proper documents.
Okay.
That's how dangerous it is if you don't have proper documents.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was it, I'm familiar with 506B and
Yeah,
506C.
there's different versions. There's a 506c, and the difference is the number of investors and how much you can get.
Okay.
Usually, I go with the 506b because you can have, it's for accredited investors. You want accredited investors, which means they understand the risk.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen companies, they got grandma and grandpa in there, but that's all right because they're family and friends. But if you get somebody on a pension that you don't know and they invest in your company, you're almost looking at jail time.
Right, because almost like taking advantage of.
Because they're not they're
Oh,
not
they're not accredited.
they're
Yeah.
not what's called sophisticated. They
Okay.
shouldn't invest in that kind of thing. So you only want people who and verify in writing. I am a millionaire basically. I have $1 million in assets, not counting my house or my cars, and I can lose all this money. Now I tell these startup guys that don't go for $5 million. Do that later, but you have to establish your company. So go for $500,000 or better, 250, because most investors, even if they have $1 million in the bank, they're not going to put $1 million into a startup. Who does that? They'll take maybe 5%, so that's 50,000, and then they'll give one company 25 and another company 25. So when these guys want 5 million, I say, okay, how many investors do you need if they're only going to invest 25 to $50,000?
It'll be a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, you're not going to find that many. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you guys were able to find one at the post office, and it was just by chance.
Yeah, that's by chance. But the
Yeah.
other ones, we go to investor conventions. I just came back from one. It was in Birmingham, Alabama. And I'm a person of faith, so these were Christian investors. They have these conventions. And we had a booth, and that's why we're talking to some VCs now. Yeah, they wanted to do
Gotcha.
diligence.
Okay.
Yeah.
How was the convention like? How was it like? How do you get involved and be part of this?
Well, you have to find out where they are, and then you have to be you have to have a presence. Now, some of them will have pitch sessions where they pick companies. Now, that I did that in February. I was actually one of 6 companies that could actually be on the stage and talk about our company. So we got investors from that as well. But normally, you want a presence is like a booth. Then people come by and they go, okay, what are you doing? So you have to have a good-looking booth. You just can't be there with a table and a couple flyers. You have to have really something. Why do people want to invest in you? But the one thing about these investor conventions is that they're accredited investors. These are real investors. You don't pay money to go someplace and then you have to flight, hotel. Then you have to cost because they have to pay to get into the convention. Sometimes a couple $100, sometimes $1,000. And then they get to look at companies. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's why you want to, you go, it's like I always tell people, if you're going to hunt elephants, you go to Africa. You don't go to Iceland because there's no elephants in Iceland.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
How did you come across this convention, and was it related to something in the trucking industry or hydrogen?
No, it has nothing to do with the trucking industry. It's because it's networking. And I always tell people, if you know somebody, they know somebody, they know somebody, they know somebody. It's like I always say, like when I was selling homes and buying homes, everybody knows somebody either buying or selling a house. It's just true.
Okay.
And like now I ask, everybody knows somebody, it seems like in the trucking industry. Oh,
Yeah.
my brother-in-law drives a truck, or my cousin has a trucking company. It's like we're getting this all the time,
Right.
So it's the same thing, but it's you find out you can Google. I mean, everything's on the internet nowadays,
Okay.
and you don't go to just any convention. Like if you're selling technology, you go to a technical convention, and they're here in Las Vegas all the time. They're in Southern California. They're all over really, but you want some that are closer to home. You can't just fly all over the country all the time because, the expense and hotels and flights. So I tell people, you have to think out of the box. Like we have this influencer. She has a YouTube channel and she's very popular, has 150,000 subscribers. And she's next week, our engineer is going to install this on her truck and she's going to drive around and she's going to tell people about what it does.
Yeah.
Now we do have to pay her money, but...
Right.
But it's good money spent because her audience are truck drivers. Mm-hmm. That's her audience.
Right.
They love her videos.
Okay.
So we're talking to people who are our direct clients. Now I could go on Fox News and put a 30-minute ad or 30-second ad, and spend $2 million and we're not going to get one call, I'm pretty sure.
That's fair. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're just going to the niche.
You go to the niche.
Yeah.
You go to the people who are going to buy. If you're selling steaks, you don't want to be marketing to vegans.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what's the name of the convention you went to? That you
It's
went
called the Lion's Den.
The Lions Den.
Yeah, and it's like the Shark Tank.
Oh, okay.
So you have to go through a process too to get on the stage. Now this time they had picked out of I don't know, hundreds of companies. They picked 6 that they had to whittle down to 3, and that we just missed it. And the reason is because our sales didn't equal what the others. The others had more sales, but they said next year you'll probably be on the stage because
Gotcha.
you'll have more sales.
So
next year.
even though you guys were not on stage, you were still able to go there, set up a booth.
We had a booth, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Lions Den and the Birmingham.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were right where all the investors go in and out, and we're right there with our booth, and people go, "Oh, what is this? What is this thing about?"
That's
here?"
amazing.
Yeah.
And do they also filter out like whoever the people who go in there, are they accredited or not accredited?
Yeah. You have to pay. Remember, you have to pay money, and then you have to fill out forms.
And you have to show.
And this is usually online, where you fill out like, "Yes, I'm accredited," and you have to fill out, what your net worth is and all that kind of stuff. And then they have the ability to reject it, like, we don't really think that you're, should you be here. So again, but they're protecting themselves. Because again, you can't have some little old lady go, "Oh yeah, I think this is good. I'll put in my pension."
Yeah. And just invest.
If you see anything, you'll see on there's a legend. This information is for accredited investors only, and that's what we put on our documents, so that if somebody they've seen that this is only for accredited investors. Not just anybody can invest, and that's why we do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. I guess that's all the questions I have.
Okay.
Truly appreciate your time today, Bill. Thank you so much.
Well, it was a pleasure.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
And what I do challenge people is to Google hydrogen and just see how it's the future is now. And that's what we say on our website. The future is here now. Mm-hmm. Don't wait 10 years. It's here now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly appreciate it. Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you.
You're welcome, Justin. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.